the river. Like the British ships we were talking about, they're a massive navy. They couldn't come down the river because there was this big the northeastern, I think that's what it's called, the northeasters wind that was coming from the northeast, and it was keeping the British from coming in. And so that kind of also helped, the Americans out a little bit and bought them some more time. And around this time when he says, hey, we just got to rely on God, that's what Washington said. Around that time, the wind changed. The United States, in their boats, they weren't able to cross neither with the wind that was blowing. And at the time that these sailors had come in and they were able to scrounge up all these boats, the wind changed. And then decided, here's where George Washington decided to do, hey, we're getting out of here, and we're doing this quick. And so it's around nighttime, and so it's really dark, and they have all the campfires set up around the front, and he tries to present this big, fake show. So he has all the army pretty much standing, ready to go, and the British could see them, so it's like this standoff. They're just kind of looking at them, and you got all the Americans just standing there in the pitch black, but they can kind of see them with all the campfires and everything else going on. And again, this wind is blowing, and I've never really experienced this wind, but supposedly it's usually strong wind and makes a lot of noise. And so the plan was, we're just going to cross at night in the middle and we're just going to get out of here. And it was really, if the British would have found out, they would have been dead on the spot, because they would have been sitting ducks, and they were just saying, hey, there's no way out. We have to try. We got to do this. So as they're crossing, and it helped out that they had all these other sailors with boats that were experienced. And so they moved 9,000 people out of there quietly. You're talking about horses, cannons, wagons, supplies, 9,000 men, the sound of all of that. Anything that made noise, they muffled it, whether it be wheels or anything like that. They muffled it with rags and stuff like that, and they just crossed it. Even the oars, they would muffle it with rags, and so in perfect precision, it was, not even the water was making noise. And, they pretty much said, if you make a noise, you're dead on the spot, because we have to do this quietly. And as they're crossing, again, the certain winds are keeping the British from coming in, and it's really dark, and so they really can't see that far, and they can't see what's happening in the river, because they see a good chunk of the army in front of them. They think they're all standing there, just waiting. And as it continues throughout the night, they, purposely, little by little, certain men start falling back and heading to the river, and then the rest kind of fill it in to kind of give this illusion of the majority of them are still there. And even they had a couple of runners going from fire to fire to try to keep them all up to make it seem like the camp is completely full. And so all of this is happening, and all this is going on, and it's been all night, and they've got maybe a good chunk, I don't know how much, maybe, I don't know, half or something like that, of the army's on the other side. But it's getting close to the sunrise, and still a massive part of the army is still on the Brooklyn side. And if the sun goes up, and the second the British see what's happening, first off, the people that were left, they're dead on the spot. There's no way. Even if they couldn't fight them before with full force, they were half at that point. They were done. And this is where they continue to say, look, we're going to rely on God. And before the sun came up, there's reports that said that this fog just lifted up from the ground, lifted up from the river, and kind of settled over both armies. They settled over where the British were and over where the Americans were encamped on the Brooklyn side. And they said one of the lieutenants was saying it was so thick that they couldn't even see 6 inches in front, 6 yards. So I probably couldn't have seen Philip or something like that right there. It was that thick. You couldn't see anything. And so the sun is up. It's bright. It is early in the morning. And still, because of this fog came at the exact moment that they needed it, helped them to get everyone out. It stayed there until everyone else was able to cross the river. And the cool thing was, if you were on the New York side or everybody on Manhattan side, it was clear as day. And you could see it was literally just this wall of fog. I just made up my own word there. This wall of fog that was literally just hanging out on the Brooklyn side over both people. And that bought them more time until literally, I think it was within the hour of the last boat. And Washington was on the last boat. He stayed till the very end. Until the last boat went. Within an hour, then the fog lifted. And to the British surprise, no one's there. And they're freaking out. They couldn't believe what happened. They're like, where did everybody go? And then they looked. They're on the other side of the river, and there was no way that they could catch them. And they slipped through their fingers. Like, they had them. The war was supposed to end that night. It should have. But then, and it wasn't really a victory because, hey, we ran away, But we ran away successfully. And that was a victory in itself in that they didn't die. And so they could, run away to fight another day. Like, what is that Jack Sparrow says in that one movie, the pirate code. And so that's what happened. And so that teaches to me And they really believed that what had happened that day, especially with the fog coming and the way it did and how it did, they believed that that was God showing favor on them and helping them when literally there was no way out. They couldn't have done it on their own. On their own strength, they would have all died because sun would have showed up. They didn't have enough time. And God did this amazing miracle, and they believed it. And so when it comes to that, I wanted you to focus on this, and that when they're, and they have, of course, heard that one question, what are we going to do? I could hear fear in that question when the lieutenant tells Washington, what are we going to do? There's nothing we can do. There was fear there because they were all afraid to die that night. And so when there was fear that it was all over, when it was fear that the freedom and what they were fighting for was done, when there was fear that it was all over, God came and gave them peace because they relied on him. And so I want you to think about that. If you really believe in that, if you really trust, like Washington said, firmly rely on God's protection, if you really trust in God, think of the peace that you would have. No matter what, it doesn't matter what situation will surround you, if you really believe in your heart that God can protect you and that God will intervene in your life, this peace should fill you a little bit. To think that I don't got to worry, you know? And no matter how bad the physical situation is, and for most, this year's been very bad physically, seeing bank accounts going down, or seeing stocks go down, or seeing businesses go down, and their jobs go away, or whatever, homes going away. You see all that, and it can be very overwhelming. But if you really believe that God, and you trust in God, that he's in control no matter what, this peace should fill your heart. This peace should fill your heart. And I believe that from then on out, they had this sense of peace that God's with us, And within a couple of weeks later, things weren't going too good for them still. They were still losing battles. They were still dying. People were struggling. They had nothing really to show for it. They had nothing to show for all their struggle and for all their sacrifice. And it was getting close to the end of the year. This was around Christmas time of 76, and they've had some ups and some downs. I think more downs than ups. But they're there, and Washington now is faced with a similar situation. They lose another major battle, and now they're kind of stuck again in a place. I think this time they're around the Delaware River, around Pennsylvania. And they again had a major losses and struggling a lot. And the British again, in their wisdom at that time, decided we're going to go relax for a little bit again. Let's just let's kind of regroup some. And they left this Hessian army. If you ever heard what that, those were German mercenaries that they had hired, and these guys were scary dudes. They were like, I don't know what you call them, Green Berets, or what's some of our baddest people that we got? Navy SEALs, or something like that. The ones that, yeah, you go. That was some Delta Force people. That was, you don't mess with those guys. And the Hessians were like that. And they were very, very well-respected, very, very good fighters. And so they left them in this city on Trenton across the river, over where the United States were, where the Americans were. And their job was just to keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on them for a little bit, make sure they don't do nothing. And, obviously if they start moving and doing something, just take them out. And so the British retire for a little bit, and there's Washington stuck again, losing all these battles, feeling that there's, hopelessness could easily sneak in. And you got probably the best fighters on the other side are staring across the river from you. And he has this problem. It's almost the end of the year. And what they did was that when you enlisted to sign up for the Revolutionary Army, when you enlisted, it was only for the year. So when New Year's Eve came, you're free to go. And so that was a little bit of a problem for Washington when the majority of his people, if you're on a losing team, you don't want to stay on that losing team, all right? I mean, Tampa fans, we're horrible, okay? Am I right? We're horrible. And so, when the Bucks are winning, we're all there. Not even this year, right? It's still pretty pathetic. Tampa fans are horrible. We would have been really bad. We would have been a very bad for Washington's army. Because things are going bad, and we're just like, okay, we're bailing out of here. The Rays, so sad, so sad. And so all that and whatever. And so, all right. And so when you're a part of a losing team, you want to ditch the team. It's just like, this is useless. This is pointless. I'm just going to go back over here and mind my own business and wearing my, I love Great Britain hat. And, I'm cool with y'all, And so that's what they wanted to do. That's what a lot of people had felt. And Washington knew this. And like, man, if we have nothing to show for it, if my men feel like this is a lost cause, we're just going to keep on losing. We're just prolonging our death. That's all we're doing. If we can do something, if we can have something to show for it, then maybe I'll have them enlist, and maybe they'll want to come back.